if that starts happening, that could have a total runaway effect and there would be nothing any of us could do about it. You know what I mean? If corporations were like, oh, real estate in small rural areas is the safest investment right now. What could we do? It would happen, you know?
I know we were talking about your market report, and it seems like you are not in the fatalist mindset of, oh, a crash is coming.
Yeah,
We're going to
well,
get
I
hit
mean, I
pretty
just
hard.
take it as it comes. I do think that, I don't have the bandwidth in my brain to really follow closely like national economics. So, in my mind, I sort of go with that anything could happen. Yeah, and anything did happen, right? I mean, our cost of living, the inflation, the prices just going up, then interest rates going up so that they could temper the whole thing. I mean, that's kind of like a not good
It's
situation,
not great.
right? So what's going to happen moving forward? That's a good question. I just know I still have people that want to buy houses and are qualified to do so or have the money. I feel like how it might trickle down in my everyday life, at least in the next. And so I write my market reports every season, every 3 months, basically 4 times a year. So I don't, I try not to get ahead of myself, like you'll
With
read.
forecasting.
Yeah, because anything could happen. Like we don't, I mean, I don't want to sound like crazy, but we live in somewhat unprecedented times and we live in an interesting state and country and I mean, we just went through a pandemic. I mean, who knows what's going to happen next? And I think that I think there's ways of looking at real estate that feel safe to me. And that's part of what I do when I work with people, especially buyers. It's important to me that it feels right, which is, I don't know. Some people will be like, oh, I don't want to work with her. She's going on a feeling. But I mean, sometimes I know more about what they're doing than they do. And I feel very strongly about not getting people into situations that they have to pay their way out of or can't afford. Or, I have helped really young, innocent people sometimes buy their first home for their very young children, one on the way or whatever. And they would not know if they bought something that was ready to fall over if you leaned on it funny. Like they really wouldn't. So, that's just kind of where I'm coming from. And I feel like it is important for people to get into property if they can, because in uncertain times, it is very tangible. You've got a house to live in. So if it's between renting or buying, still totally buy. Who cares what the market's doing? Who cares if you pay 9%? I'm helping an older gentleman sell his house right now. And he's like, yeah, I bought this with 18% interest,
Wow. See, a lot
this
of people hear that
property.
and they get scared about the interest
Yeah,
rates.
but he didn't regret it. He lived in that house for 40 years. You know what I mean? It was his dream property. So sometimes it might be worth 18% to do that. I mean, everybody has to make their own decision. I don't hope to have to work in that market. I don't want to see that happen at all, because that obviously represents a peak in basically the history of interest rates that we do
18%
not
is pretty
want to
high.
replicate. And I don't think in Humboldt County, I don't know what would happen, if we started going that direction. And is it possible? Yeah. I mean, I've read some national things where they talk about, like the long-term forecasting is corporate buy-up of property, basically. I don't know. I've heard like Zillow's buying property. You know what I
Zillow,
mean?
BlackRock, I
Yeah,
believe, is getting
right.
into
And
it.
so that's kind of like, if that starts happening, that could have a total runaway effect and there would be nothing any of us could do about it. You know what I mean? If corporations were like, oh, real estate in small rural areas is the safest investment right now. What could we do? It would happen, So, there's no way to know. So, but in the meantime, I just start with, if it's housing, if it's for your housing, it's worth it.
At any price.
I mean, well, I wouldn't
Any
say
price
at
you
any
can afford.
price, but based on what, it's kind of an equation. I always say like real estate is one part financial, but it's also physical, emotional, psychological. There's a lot of factors. So you do have to take that all into consideration. If, there are probably, I mean, I haven't read them recently, but I have seen like studies where they say that housing owner occupancy versus tenancy provides a different kind of stability, not just to a family or an individual, but also to a community. So like children raised in their in a home that their family owns have a different experience of life than children in a tenancy situation. Um, and that's just, there are like outcomes that are measurable on that. And you can think about the different kind of disruptions people go through when they're in a tenancy situation. And then there's a whole bunch of like non-financial things like the psychology, the emotion of it, of not being able to choose what color your walls are or whatever, all these levels and layers. So I know I'm going back to the owner occupancy thing and I'm trying to remember what was I going through. But anyways, at a certain level, there is a dollar number where it's that has a value for an individual. For some people, they don't care as much. They're like, I don't care. I'll just rent. I might move here or move there. I'm kind of whatever. I don't really need to put down roots. I have enough money or I have investments elsewhere and I'm fine. Fine. Great. But if you're like, yeah, I know I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere and I'm paying too much for rent and I have a good job and I can qualify for a loan, then it even makes sense at a higher interest rate, I think, because of the long-term benefit to your being besides just your pocketbook.